Good morning to everyone. My name is Elisa Chioatto, and I'm a PhD student at the Department of Economics and Management of the University of Ferrara. Today I'm going to speak about innovations for circular business models, and especially about an approach that I have developed with other two colleagues, Zecca and the professor Alessio D'Amato, to classify circular business models that we called a product life cycle approach. However, before going into the details of this study, I think it is important to understand why did we decide to start our research. Because even if it is commonly agreed that the circular economy plays an essential role in the process of transformation involving firms toward climate neutrality, and on the other side to support, to allow them to maintain their competitiveness on the market, despite this, it is less clear how the circular economy can be translated at firm level. So especially what remains to be defined is how we can transform the production processes in compliance with the definition of circular economy. Normally, innovation has been regarded as one of the main effective responses to this. However, also in this concern, there are different issues that emerge. For example, if the innovation plays a role, which are the specific typologies of innovation that can match with the circular economy objectives? Because while the literature on innovation is extensive, the literature that links these two concepts is still scant. On the other side, after having understood better which is the definition of circular eco-innovation, we have also to understand which are the consequences of the implementation, the adoption of these innovative practices at the business level. And thirdly, it is also important in order to allow firms that can properly introduce these practices, it is also important to understand which are the drivers for the introduction of eco-innovation related to the circular economy. And we can say that we tried to shed light on all these three different issues. First of all, in a working paper that we have already published, and now in an extension of this research in which we are more focusing on the drivers favoring the adoption of the circular eco-innovation. This is the structure of our work, especially the structure of the first part. We were firstly interested in shedding light on the definition of circular eco-innovation. So how we did that. We reviewed the literature in order to find the definition of circular economy and eco-innovation and the overlapping dimensions between these two concepts. We found the definition of circular eco-innovation. More specifically, we can say that from the eco-innovation literature, we know that there are incremental and technological eco-innovation that mainly regard the process and product eco-innovation, and how we can translate this in the realm of the circular economy. So which are the typologies of process and product eco-innovation that comply also with the circular economy objectives? For example, all those innovative practices that are aimed at resource conservation, resource efficiency, to extend the life of products. On the other side, however, we also know that we have radical and non-technological innovative practices that for the most involve organizational eco-innovation. And these typologies connecting these practices with the circular economy, we understand that we are in the realm of a more broader definition of circular economy that also involves sustainability, because these practices, radical, give a stronger boost that is necessary to change both our production and consumption habits in a circular perspective. Then we thought that it was also important, after having better define the theoretical framework on circular innovation, was also important to understand and to identify in practice which are these specific eco-innovation linked to the circular economy. And as a last step, understanding how the introduction of these practices will have consequences at the business level. So how these practices will change the way of firms that firms produce and generally do business, so have a profit. In this regard, we review the literature and we selected from the literature eco-innovative practices, but that also have a positive impact on circular economy. So after having provided a list of these eco-innovative practices, we categorized them according to the different phases of products life. So we will have input-based practices, so changes introduced at the beginning of the product life, use-based practices, so changes in the way products are used, and end-of-life-based practices, changes after the consumption phase of products. Then, linking these eco-innovations with the circular business models, we tried to understand how the implementation of each category of circular eco-innovation could change business models also. So we end with different business models according to each phases of product's life, and this is also the reason why we called our approach product life cycle. So we will have business models focused on the circular input, business models focused on the circular use, and business models focused on the circular output. As a last step, which is the research we are trying to develop now, is trying to validate our theoretical archetype, and especially we want to demonstrate that there exists heterogeneity between the implementation of circular innovations, and so that different drivers are needed in order, if we want to stimulate firms in the adoption of circular eco-innovation, according that it is of input, of use, or of output. We are doing this study using survey data collected by churches, that is the Center for Research on Circular Economy of the University of Ferrara. This is a survey carried out in 2019 on Italian manufacturing firms. Now we have a sample with more than 4,000 companies, and the period covered by the survey is 2017-2018. In this step, we needed to identify our circular innovations. So how we did that? We refer to the questionnaire because in the questionnaire it was asked to firm about the introduction or not of a list of eco-innovations. So between this list, we selected the eco-innovative practices proposed that fitted the most with our archetype. So we managed to identify 3 eco-innovation for the circular input, 2 eco-innovations for the circular output. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to match any eco-innovation for the circular use. These are our explanatory variables, and we created a Probit model. These are our preliminary results. And at the first sight, we can say that except for the export and green R&D, which are both significant and positive for the 2 categories, there is a heterogeneity between the variables influencing the adoption of circular innovation of input and of output. And then at the same time, we can also say that there is homogeneity between the variables influencing the same category of circular innovation. So trying to give a first interpretation to this result, we expected that for both the variables of export and investments on green R&D, there was a significance and positiveness. Because as for the exportation, we know from the literature that normally the openness to international markets produces a positive effect on firms' innovation activity. On the other side, for the investments in green R&D, we also know that normally in order to introduce innovation, we need to increase the expenditure on research and development. Then we have the number of employees with a degree employed in the research and development, which seems to be more significant for input innovation compared to the output innovations, in which it is also negative. And this can maybe be explained from the fact that innovation on the output, and especially these typologies of innovation that we selected, which are mostly concerned with the waste management, these typologies of innovation are more technical. Therefore, they require more technical employees rather than employees with a degree. Then we have for both ETS and patent application, we have a greater significance for input innovation compared to the output innovation. Also, in this case, we can say that since these two typologies of eco-innovation are mainly concerned on the design, maybe this will require more attention to environmental policy compared to waste management innovation. Then I left it for the last one because it is a bit, we can say, not expected, since we have to work more on this variable, is the variable of sector. Here sector concern the technological intensity of the sector in which the firm operates. And here it seems that low-tech firms in both categories are more inclined to adopt circular eco-innovations compared to the high-tech. And since it is in a certain way different to our expectation, we are trying to understand more the reasons of these results. For example, it can be that these low-tech firms are the activities concerned with these firms are more linked to the circular economy. That's the reason why they can seem more inclined to adopt innovation into the circular economy. Or maybe there can be that high-tech innovation in this case, so captured by this survey, in these activities, the management of waste is more problematic, so is more difficult. That's the reason why there are more difficulties on the adoption of these typologies of innovation. And this is the reason why we were thinking to use not only the technological intensity of the sector, but also the ATECO codes of these activities in order to explore more into details these results. I finished my presentation and I thank you very much for your attention.